Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. My name is Doña, aka Doña the Lights, and it's another daily mental health stream. Yeah, let's start off by talking about my shop. If you're catching this live stream on Twitch, please feel free to contribute in the chat. This is a community conversation and we welcome everyone to share their thoughts and opinions. If you're catching this replay on YouTube, this is essentially going to play out like a video podcast, so just pop us on in the background and just listen in. No need to feel forced to watch the video. So just want to start off by saying this stream is sponsored by me, myself, and I. I have an Etsy shop that has mental health focused clothing and healing jewelry. It's the same as my username, Doña the Light, if you want to look for it. But yeah, I have tons of awesome pieces. Everything that is apparel and etc. is print on demand to help save the planet. All of the pendants and rings and all of those kinds of things are handmade by myself. So I've got shirts, sweatshirts, wall art, hats, mugs, tumblers, journals, totes, hoodies, and stickers, as well as more to come. So yeah, if you'd like to support me in ways that require money, my shop is an awesome way to do that. If you would like to support me in ways that are free, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Here it is in the chat. And of course, just, participate in the streams. Shaka's here. Illusion! What's up, Illusion? Welcome into the chat. Alright, so today I have an amazing guest. Miss Aisha is here all the way from the UK, and we are here to talk about our experiences with therapy. And, the good, the bad, the in-between, we're going to talk about it. So y'all can ask questions. Aisha, you want to start or you want me to start?
You can start. No.
Okay. So I had the opportunity to go to therapy twice in my life so far. Both times have been very helpful. The second time was definitely longer than the first. But, yeah, so access wasn't really a problem as far as connecting with a therapist. The biggest hindrance, I would say, was just for therapy to even be a part of the conversation, when discussing, like, I'm going through this and I really don't know what the solution is. And the first time I went to therapy was actually with my ex, and we went to therapy to talk to someone specifically about our relationship. And I remember one of the questions being, is this a relationship that you want to stay in? And I was like, yeah. When in reality, I really didn't want to. Like, being asked that question was so, okay, calendar falling off the wall. Being asked that question, I don't remember if it was a question that our therapist wrote to us, like, hey, can you answer these questions separately, or if it was something that she said out loud. If it was said out loud, that would have made it even more awkward, because I wasn't happy in our relationship, and I wasn't sure at that point if I wanted to continue. I just knew that my ex and I had very different communication styles, and there were a lot of things that we just did not see eye to eye on, and I wanted to remedy that. So I figured, having not just a therapist, but someone, to mediate the conversations between us who wasn't related to either one of us, because that was already, a struggle, would really help. And it was great. I mean, we only saw her for 4 sessions. We saw her once a week for about a month. But I really appreciated the questions that she asked. I really appreciated the fact that she held us both accountable. Essentially, we had our first session together, and then she had one session with him, I had one session with her, and then we had another session together. And eventually, the reason why we stopped seeing her was because my ex said basically it was going to be too difficult to navigate with his schedule. And I found this therapist as well, my second therapist, on a website called betterhelp.com, which I talk about all the time. The great thing about BetterHelp is when it comes to scheduling sessions with your therapist, I mean, you just see their calendar for the next, 2 weeks or whatever. And so you get to choose the days and times that you see them. So for him to say, oh, my schedule, I'm like, yeah. But he was also paying for it. It was like, don't know, about $260 a month, so nothing too crazy. It was reasonable.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was, you know, and because he was paying for it, I felt like I didn't have an opinion on pushing back, even though he didn't say, oh, I think it's too expensive. He said, oh, it's my schedule. Like, I felt like I didn't have any wiggle room, so I just let it go. And then probably about a year ago, I connected with a therapist again. I don't remember specifically why I reached out to her, but I had gone through some stuff. Like, I was in an abusive relationship at the end of, like, 2015, I think it was, and I had never resolved any of that trauma. And then I also had a miscarriage before I got pregnant with Kairu. So August of 2021. What year are we in? Okay, I was pregnant for all 2022. So it must have been 2021. I had a miscarriage. So, and that was really, really difficult. So it really helped to navigate both of those situations with my my therapist, because I did not know what to do from there. All I knew was that I deeply wanted to get pregnant again, but I was terrified of getting pregnant again, because getting pregnant again meant that I could potentially have another miscarriage. So it was very, very scary. But yeah, I would definitely, absolutely recommend therapy to people. Because I had a longer relationship with my second therapist, although she was wonderful, what I appreciated about her the most was that she was the resource queen. Like, I was telling her that we have children, and she was like, oh my goodness, let me send you, like, PDFs and stuff like that to have conversations with them about, like, emotional intelligence and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, ah! And the best thing about it was she always constantly told me, like, hey, everything that I'm sending you, I'm finding, what is it called? Like, public domain. She's like, I'm not going to send you, like, oh, all you got to do is pay this subscription. She's like, I'm always going to send you stuff that you can share with people, because I want to make this stuff accessible. So she sent me, like, PDFs of books. She sent me tons of PDF resources on, like I said, emotional intelligence and just different kinds of things for children. She was wonderful. She was a Black woman. Both my therapists have been Black women, which has been so I can't even put into words how helpful. And again, I don't have any experience with any other kind of therapist, but I know just like seeing someone who looks like me come up on that screen immediately puts me at ease, you know, to have conversations that are weird or uncomfortable or, you know, really vulnerable. It instantly kind of helps me put my guard down. I wouldn't say that there was anything bad about my second therapist, but if I would describe it as an in-between, which was, there were situations in which we would start our sessions and I'd be sharing with her, and she would ask me questions about stuff that we had already talked about. And I'm like, we already talked about this. And I just felt like, kind of like, weren't you listening? You know what I mean? Like, kind of, I didn't really know what to say. And then my rational mind was like, well, it's okay, you know, she's got tons of clients, blah, 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 you know, no harm, no foul. It wasn't like she was sharing something that was completely irrelevant to me or something, you know, where I'm like, that's not, what? You know, which person are you talking about? And the other thing is that we'd be in sessions and we did everything virtually. So, like, you know, my camera's over there. Like, I would see her, like, looking at the screen, but she'd be like, and I'm like, I can hear you type. You know what I mean? Like, and for my sessions, I tell my clients, which usually I don't do it, I won't type because they can hear it, but I'll put notes on my phone and I'll say, hey, if you see me looking down, I'm typing notes, like, for your file on my phone to let them know. But I'm still completely there. You know what I mean? Like, they say something and I'm responding actively, you know? And so sometimes that was a little peevy. Yeah. But I didn't know how to, like, I didn't know what to say. Because so many parts of me were like, don't complain, you know? Like, you got, like, an A+ therapist and you're over here making it about this little thing. But it did make me feel kind of unseen and unheard in certain situations. Especially because I could tell that she wasn't as present because she wouldn't respond in a way that showed that she was present. You know, like, I could tell that she was kind of distracted.
Were there ever times where you could tell that she was really present in the conversation? Like, was it like a big comparison between the two?
No, not really. And I think that's the thing. Like, she wasn't very, I'm not going to say she wasn't very talkative, but kind of. She wouldn't just talk at me. She was very much a listener and an observer. So she would ask me questions and make me think about stuff, and I'd be like, why you gotta make me do so deep? You know what I mean? So, yeah, to your point, there wasn't, like, this really stark contrast between when she was present and she's, like, talking. But, yeah, and, again, it's like, you know, do I complain? Was she really not present? You know, maybe that's what her being present looks like. Maybe she takes a moment to process, you know what I mean? But it's like, how do you address those biases within yourself where you're like, no, I need direct eye contact all duration of the entire session in order to know that you're there with me. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I probably could have brought that to her attention. You know, like, the story I'm telling myself is that, you know, you are typing, like, you're updating your Tinder profile. No, I'm just playing. She was totally married. She had, like, 5 kids. But, you know, the story I'm telling myself is that because we're not making eye contact, a virtual eye contact, you know, that you're, I don't know. It wasn't that I was concerned about, like, not being interesting. I think I was really just concerned about, about, like, sharing something and then her missing it. And then me having to repeat it or something, you know?
Worse. Because it's like, you're there at therapy to talk about your life. And, like, most of the time you don't want to go over and over it. So, that's a pretty big concern. But I feel like for therapy, it's completely okay. Probably the most okay place to, like, have someone be exactly how you want them to be. Because, like, you'll be so vulnerable with them that it really is important that they're who you want.
I agree. And I think that, you know, to that point, being able to communicate, like, hey, this is a really sore spot for me, you know, you not making eye contact or whatever, or even just communicating with me, saying something like, I tell my clients, you know, I'm just taking notes for your file. Like, I'm still here. Even just that acknowledgement would help put my mind at ease. But again, I didn't know how to communicate that to her. So I kind of just, like, put it in my pocket and just, like, tucked it away. And I was constantly thinking about, well, think about all the wonderful things that she's done so far, you know. She took me through EMDR therapy. Like I said, she was a resource queen. My favorite part of interacting with her was that it was just always so comfortable. Like, she would enter the session and she'd be, like, burning an incense. And she's like, hey, Doña, welcome in. You know, this isn't for you. This is for the client before you. And then sometimes she would tell me about this client, like, not about the client, but she would say, yeah, this client keeps getting really frustrated with me because she says that I'm not helping her. And I keep telling her, you don't need a therapist, you need a lawyer. She says, but she just keeps booking sessions. So she's got to interact with this person who's, like, upset with her the entire time because the person keeps saying, you can't help me. And she's like, you're right. I can't help you. You don't need mental health advice. You need legal advice. And I am not a lawyer. So she would, like, wave around. I could just, like, see her decompressing. It was so funny sometimes. But, yeah, like, you know, and sometimes she would, like, we talk about something and she would point out, like, her stones. And she's like, yeah, I've got these stones around me, you know, for this and this and that. And yada, yada, yada for my office. And, you know, it was just, again, it really helped me tear down my walls. I'm very grateful that those have been my experiences with therapy. I'm hoping, you know, that if and when I ever want to go back, I can still connect with a Black female therapist. I think I'll still be able to connect with my previous therapist. And then I probably should write down those things and communicate them to her, you know, if I do continue sessions with her in the future. Because I think it's important to have that evolution, you know, like, now that I feel more confident in sharing those kinds of things, I should communicate them to her instead of just moving along. So, yeah. All right, tag team, Aisha, it's your turn.
Okay. So, I don't really have to start, but I could start with my I've had a kind of weird experience with therapists because I've had like 3 trial therapists, like with just one session for like a week, and then a few years later, so like a few months ago, I got a therapist that was like given from the government, and like 6 free sessions, and then that's been my therapy experience. So yeah, but I've had quite odd experiences of this. Like, well, I'll just start with the first 3. So I had a week where I was like, I wrote an email to all of them saying that, you know, I'm looking for a therapist. I've never had therapy before. I need it for this, this, and this. And could we have a trial session? And they all said yes. So then in that week, it would be like a few days in between. And I'd go to the next therapist and have a session. But it was so bizarre. Because, I don't know, it was just like, I really noticed that there was some odd, like, practices that I've experienced with them that were, like, kind of, I don't know. Like, the best way I can describe it is, like, manipulation tactics on clients, which was, like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember there was like, so the last one I tried, I was like, okay, this is a trial. I've had 2 others this week, and you're my last one. Can you tell me a bit about how you do it, what therapy's like, and so on? And I remember she started the session off saying, I know you're not going to pick me, so I'm going to tell you. And I was like, yo, wait, what?
So we start? Okay.
No, yeah. So she was like, yeah, I know you're not going to pick me, so I'm going to give you the truth about therapists. And I was like,
wow.
What is happening?
Right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But the things that she was saying were actually like true. She was saying like how you know, therapists can't heal things that need to be healed by a psychiatrist, like or things that need to be diagnosed. But it was just the way she was saying it, like, if a therapist tells you this, they're lying, and like you shouldn't go with it. And it was like, oh, like
yeah.
really, like, it was really odd. And then after those, I was kind of like scared of therapy for a long time, because it was just like, you're there to be vulnerable, and then you have to put walls up in case the therapist wants to like get you. So it's just it was.
That sounds scary. That sounds really. To begin the session like that, I'd be like,
I know.
Am I in the right place? In the right place. This feels so weird.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like, I was like kind of disappointed as well, because I really just wanted to hear like what she had to say.
Yeah.
And like, for her to just give it a fair shot instead of like giving up at the start. And it was pretty good.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And again, like you said, you're there genuinely seeking support. You know, like, tell me about, like, I remember when I was speaking to Diana about it, she called it, we were looking through BetterHelp, because she was like, I want to see what this is like. And so she said essentially what it's called, there's a part on BetterHelp in the little application process that talks about like what you want from a therapist, which is like, oh, I want somebody to basically just vent to, and it's like a checklist. She says you can have someone who like assigns you homework and follows up and blah, blah, blah. And she said that's called their theoretical framework. So even if that was what they shared with you, you know, during the trial, I feel like that would make sense, you know, during the trial session. They're not really there to, I mean, they are there to help you, but there's only so much you can do with a person that first session. You know, you're just meeting them, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But that sounds really discouraging. Really discouraging. Yeah. So that was the three trial sessions, the three trial therapist sessions. Yeah. That sounded weird. And then you had the opportunity to try again with another therapist. How did those sessions go?
They were kind of meh. Like, they were okay, but then not okay once as well. So there was a lot of stuff that we worked through that I found really helpful. Mm-hmm. Like, just, like having a professional to, like, look at your situation and, like, listen to everything you're saying. Mm-hmm. Be able to say, like, to be able to ask you the right questions to move you forward. Yeah. That was so helpful. Yeah. Like, that was really hard to get to, like, anywhere else. But yeah, that was pretty much the most I got. But that was still really beneficial, even if it wasn't, like, the right therapist for me. I still got quite a lot of healing done from just that.
That's good. Yeah. If you had the opportunity, would you go to any of those therapists again?
Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
I know that you had shared with me about, I think it was this last therapist, about what they had said to you to basically diminish, I don't want to say your entire existence, but kind of. Would you like to share that with the stream?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was really struggling with my dad at the time, because I had kind of just realised that he was really emotionally unavailable, and then I kind of, like, realised it, and it, like, took a long time to neutralise that shock of, like, whoa, like, this is not what a parent is expected to be. Mm-hmm. So I was telling her about my struggles with that and how, you know, it was kind of hard to, like, just do daily life, and how, like, just being in the same room with him was really draining, because I knew there wasn't this, like, reciprocation type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I was telling her about all of that and things that I'd gone through, and what she was saying, so, like, the context of it was, she was saying that it wasn't bad enough, my experience wasn't bad enough for, like, services to get involved, or for, like, something to happen from that, like, from a government, if that makes sense. So it wasn't bad enough for someone to step in and do something, but she kept repeating it over and over again without that context. Mm-hmm. And, like, every sentence she'd be like, Aisha, it's not bad enough. And I'm, oh, okay.
That sounds terrible.
It was not great.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, to hear that from a therapist as well, like, someone that you deem kind of with the same authority as, like, a parent, like, they know everything.
Right.
And then do again, like, just be like, no. And then it's like,
right.
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, when you're already struggling with a parent.
Yeah.
And then to hear, you know, and I hadn't even considered that. Like, I hadn't even considered thinking about why it was difficult to say that to my therapist and seeing her almost as my mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if that were my mom and she made, like, small irritating mistakes, over and over and over again, would I say something? Probably not. Because I would probably keep telling myself the same thing, like, Doña, it's not bad enough.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's not big enough. Would it still bother me and hurt my feelings? Yeah. Would I slowly start telling myself a new story of, like, she probably doesn't even enjoy this, or I don't even know if this is really working because is she even really listening to me, despite the fact that, you know, she's assigning me relevant homework and whatnot. You know, is she really even listening, or whatever. And my mind's going to start going other places because, again, I'm going to start telling myself a different story based on whatever narrative I'm conjuring, because I don't feel confident enough to, you know, quote unquote, talk back to an authoritative figure. And I think that's really, really important to consider as someone who is a therapist or works in mental health. The way that your clients perceive you, not like on purpose, you know, because it's not on purpose. It's just like you said, the whole like authority figure. Like, one of the things that I hear a lot is that people ask me all the time, even as a life coach, they're like, I would feel so awkward sharing and like dumping all this on you and you not being able to reciprocate. And I say, okay, I hear you, you know, but first and foremost, you are reciprocating. You're reciprocating with your time and your money. Let's be honest. But also, it's only for these kinds of services that people feel the need to reciprocate. Most of the time because they haven't experienced interacting with someone on such an emotionally available level that they feel like, oh my goodness, like I gotta do something for you. And I'm like, this is totally, what you're doing is enough, you know? But I'm providing a service. You know, if someone were to come and cut your grass, you would not feel and do a wonderful job. You would not feel obligated to go cut their grass. You know what I mean? Like, because there's no emotional attachment to it. But for these emotional connections, people definitely feel as though they have to be available for the other person emotionally. And I'm like, no, you're good. You ain't got it. Don't worry about that. I got me. Don't worry. You know, but yeah, it's like you said, it's like, it's interesting. It's like roles, not only mental health, but like teacher roles, or you know, like professors, teachers, anybody that's, I want to say, kind of teaching us something. We kind of feel that connection to the parental role a little bit. And it's difficult to have conversations with those types of people, with people on those types of roles, without feeling like you're talking to your parent. It's just, you know what I mean? Welcome in, Sleepy. I'm late. I'm sorry. It's okay. We forgive you, sort of. We are sharing, Aisha and I are talking about our experiences with therapy. The good, the bad, and the in-between. So if y'all have any experiences you'd like to share, the good, the bad, the in-between, drop it in the chat. And I'll read it out loud, of course. But, little baby, you good? Kelly Crocodile dropping random happy memes in the chat.
But did you ever experience something like that where you kind of felt this parental role, or like, when is the time that you felt that the most from a therapist or anyone that's kind of the teacher?
For me, I would say, I definitely felt it from my last therapist. I'm trying to think of who else. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, all right, so here's the thing, okay? So, my mom is completely not emotionally available, like, at all. Like, my mom gives me church hugs. She just gives me the whole side pat, like, she's like, hey, see you later. Like, that's it. Like, if I hug my mom chest to chest, she's like, what's wrong? Like, immediately, did someone die? I mean, she doesn't say that, but that's, like, the inkling. She's not... vulnerability, or not even vulnerability, just openness or talking about it is just, it's not in her wheelhouse. So, because I think that's the key reason why we have parents that are emotionally immature and emotionally unavailable, and then we have someone who comes to us. I mean, sometimes it doesn't even matter if they're older or not. It's not even a thing about age. It's just about the way that they approach us, and if they approach us in a way that shows that they are emotionally available and willing to hear us out, you know, sometimes even just give us a hug. Like, there was a woman that I worked with when I worked at the school district, or not school district, when I was substitute taught a couple years ago, who I could definitely kind of feel that momness from. And I'm realizing, like, as you're asking that question, I'm thinking about it and reflecting, that's what it is. It's the emotional availability of that person. Even if they're not necessarily in that therapist role, you know, like, if I was seeing my therapist in person, I probably would have asked her, like, are we allowed to hug? I probably would have asked her on multiple occasions, are we allowed to hug? You know, because it's just not something, especially, like, after we did EMDR, and I'm telling her about my previous relationship, I'm telling her about my miscarriage, like, I could have definitely used, like, a real tight squeeze, you know, in that moment. But I think that's what it is we want parents, point blank period, who are emotionally available. I mean, I can really only speak from my perspective that it's mostly mom, because my dad wasn't really in my life at all. So I don't really know what that relationship would even look like. But I feel like that's what it is. That's what makes them feel like a parental figure, is the fact that they are emotionally available. They allow you to be emotionally vulnerable in a safe space, and, you know, comfort and support you through all those roller coaster type feelings that you probably were never able to really experience prior to this conversation. You know, it was always just like you suppressed it, or, you know, like my mom used to say, let me give you a reason to cry. And I'm like, oh. Looking back, I'm like, oh, okay. Right, because crying made her so uncomfortable that it was like, maybe if I threaten you, you'll stop. But in reality, I'm just like, just crying more. It would be over the smallest things, too. Like, I remember my mom asking me one time if I brushed my teeth, and I started crying. I don't even remember why. I'm like, did I brush my teeth that night? Like, was it because I didn't brush my teeth that I was crying? You know, like, those guilt tears, like, oh no, she's gonna know. She's gonna smell my breath and I'm gonna get in trouble. Like, I don't know. I don't remember what it was. But I definitely remember her saying, let me give you a reason to cry. But yeah, I think that's what it is it's the emotional availability, the emotional vulnerability, the safe space, you know, opening up about things that we probably wish we could have opened up to our parents about. Because my assumption, again, is an assumption because I don't have this experience, is that if we have emotionally mature parents and we can have those conversations, even if I were to just tell my mom, like, this is what I experienced, and for her to provide some sort of comfort, not necessarily even a solution, you know, like, I would still want to get a solution and, like, really, really dump on a therapist, you know, because that is their role. I don't want to dump on my mom, that's not her role. But even if I was able to get some sort of emotional and physical support in that moment of vulnerability, then I think it would be easier for me to separate the two, you know? But again, this is an assumption, because I don't really know. But yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate that question. Got me over here reflecting. I'm like, what is it about that?
What I do.
Yeah.
Oh, I had another question. This is when I get to ask questions, like, in real life. But, what was, like, something in therapy that made you kind of, not really your biggest takeaway, but more like something where you were like, yes, someone validated this, or someone understands this, or like this is a thing in the professional world, or something like that?
Honestly, that would have been with my first therapist. I still remember her name was Amber. She was another black woman. And even though this wasn't specifically what my ex and I were struggling with, my ex is a white guy. So there's that. So I remember her bringing up, and I don't even know how we got on the topic, but she was asking something about him and like his cultural background or something like that. And his go-to was like, well, I grew up in this area, and, you know, I grew up with people of all nationalities, and, you know, I have black friends, and blah, 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 blah. And the typical, you know, which, you know, I think it just kind of comes out. But she had asked him straight up, like, oh, no, I'm sorry, she said, you cannot separate, no, what did she ask? I want to say she asked something like, do you believe or something that you and Doña have different experiences, you know, in America? And I think he was kind of confused, and you know, she asked him something along the lines of like, you know, you as a white man and her as a black woman, you know, do you think that you two have different experiences here in the world? And I don't remember what he said. Like, I don't think he said no, but I think he was still kind of like trying to like beat around it or get more clarification. And she says, you know, you cannot separate Doña from her blackness. Like, you cannot say that, you just can't, like, you can't separate her from her blackness. It's a part of her.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he's still like fuzzy about it because these aren't conversations that he's ever had with anybody ever. And I was so like, oh, are we really talking about this? Like, I could feel my heart beating really hard. Even though I wasn't leading the conversation, I didn't bring it up. I wasn't like, yo, he's a racist. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't how we got there. But then I asked him, I gave him an example. I said, think about it this way. I said, you and I both work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, huge rental car company here in the U.S. And I said, think about if we were to go to, like, their headquarters or whatever. You look on the wall and you see a bunch of photos of people that are in like executive positions. All of them are white men. Maybe there's a black guy sprinkled in there, but they're all white men, right? I said, first and foremost, they're all men. Second of all, 99% of them are white. I said, what would make me as a black woman, not seeing myself up there, think like, yeah, this is I can go far in this company. You know what I mean? I can do so much. You know?
Yeah.
So, the fact that she, you know, said straight out to him, you can't separate Doña from her blackness, and also just, like, made it abundantly clear that it's a fact that we have different experiences here in the world. It's not an assumption. It's an actual fact that we have, doesn't matter our age, we could have been adopted into the same family.
Yeah.
Had the same exact upbringing. We're still going to have different experiences here in this world.
Yeah.
So that was probably like, yes, somebody said it, you know, because it wasn't necessarily like that was a huge issue in our relationship, but I remember my 26th birthday very vividly. My 26th birthday, and he took me to a plant nursery. First of all, I was already, like, peeved that day. I always had, like, this lingering frustration because I wasn't happy with our relationship overall. And I didn't know how to address it. So I kind of always had this, like, lingering, like I call that little low boil. It was always there. So we drove out. I was sleeping most of the way, and we got there, and I was like, cool. Whatever. And then, of course, I got there, and there was, like, plants everywhere, so I got a little giddy. I was like, oh. But while we were there, we were walking around, and I felt so uncomfortable because there was not a single other black person in that entire establishment. And I remember just being, like, really emotional that day. And so we left the nursery. We went and got something to eat. And I'm just, like, on the verge of tears. And he's just looking at me like, what the heck is wrong? And I told him, like, it was really uncomfortable to be walking around this entire nursery and not see a single other black person.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly what he said, but could see on his face that he just couldn't really grasp,
Yeah.
like what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so to think about moving forward, having that session with my therapist and her saying that, you know, very clearly to him, like, you two have different experiences. A white man in the U.S. and a black woman in the U.S. are going to have very different experiences. That was probably one of my favorite, not favorite, but it was very, like, I needed to hear it, you know? I needed to hear someone else say that out loud. And of course the fact that it was another black woman really helped. But also just, you know, a professional in the field of mental health who's, you know, spoken to a lot of people, you know, it wasn't just us being her first clients or whatever and her sharing that with us. But that was a really big takeaway for me. Another takeaway from my second therapist was when I was telling her about, I forgot if it was a miscarriage or whatever, and kind of telling her, you know, again, that I really wanted to get pregnant again, but was deathly afraid of getting pregnant again. And so I'm going through this cycle, and it's like constantly taking pregnancy tests and yada, 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 and being like super on top of, like, you know, when would I be ovulating? When is my period gonna come? Like, all of these things. And I think it was her that told me, like, just because miscarriages are common doesn't mean that they're not difficult. You know, like, just because people have experienced, lots of people have experienced domestic violence doesn't mean that it's not traumatic. You know, because even if you had experienced it multiple times, it still will be traumatic every time. And so that realization of that realization that I was trying to, like, minimize what I was experiencing because of its commonality. That was really, really big for me, because I feel like we do that a lot. You know, it's like, oh, tons of people have gone through trauma. Oh, tons of people, you know, have experienced PTSD. Oh, tons of people have been in abusive relationships. You know, and sometimes that's what we're met with when we share it with people, especially our peers. You know, it's like, you're not an anomaly. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, but it still hurts. Like, I don't. And so we kind of get used to not only minimizing it, but trying to, like, push it down. It's not that important. It's not that big a deal. So many people, and then we get into, it could have been worse. You know, at least I'm still alive. It could have been worse.
Exactly.
So
whenever that happens, like, if you actually take the time to, like, write out your life, you'll see that it's like you've been through a lot. Like, you have been through a lot, and it's like, people always think, like, oh, it could have been worse, but it's like, this could be the limit for you as a person.
Exactly.
So this could be the worst for you. So
that's very true. That's very, very true. Like, if you map it out or graph it out, if you graph it out with, like, you know, peaks and valleys, you know, whatever that perceived peak was for you. And I feel like as we get older, I think that's actually a really, really good idea, because, you know, would I perceive that my experience with domestic violence was a peak, or would I perceive that my miscarriage was a peak? You know what I mean? Like, because in both situations, life just kept lifing. Like, or even in November when my older brother passed away, life just kept lifing. And I remember saying out loud, I think I said it to Grover, maybe my mom or someone, I was like, I wish I could just, like, turn off the world for, like, a week. Like, I wish I could just not have to tell people, like, not have to tell people that my brother just passed away, not have to answer what happened. How the heck am I supposed to, like, I understand to a certain extent, but, like, if he had passed away in a car accident, I would say that. He passed away in a car accident. You know what I mean? Like, he literally passed away in his sleep. We still don't have any information. My mom just asked me to check the other day on the coroner's website out here in our county. It just says pending. And I'm like, And on that website, they also don't put much information. Like, I looked through a couple other people's, and it just said, like, I think one of them said auto, from an auto accident. The other one just said natural. What does that mean? What's that? Like, natural causes?
One word? It's not like a paragraph or anything? Wow.
It's just one word. It doesn't make any sense. And I kind of get it, because this one is, like, public domain.
Yeah.
So anyone can look it up. So I don't know if maybe once they get past the pending status, they'll, like, send my mom something with more information. But, yeah, on the website, it's literally just a word. It's just, I'm like, cool.
Wow.
Right? Is, you know? Sleepy says, guys, I feel that. My brother passed away a few weeks back from a heart attack. And people keep asking if I'm okay. And I know they mean well, but, like, no. Clearly, I am not okay. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not okay at all. Like, how do you define... what that was. How do you define being okay after someone passes away? You know, like... And the hardest part of it was everybody asking. You know, having to reach out to people, having to plan the ceremony, having to reach out to people and invite them to the ceremony. All of that stuff was just so mentally draining. You know what I mean? Like, so mentally draining. And I'm very much, like, at peace, I could say, with my brother passing. Because I can see the role that he served, like, while he was here. Because his presence was phenomenal. Like, my goodness. CB says, like, no, I'm not okay. I'm sad and pissed, but I can't explain why or what this feeling is. Exactly. Because immediately my mind goes to, like, you know, I thought we had so much more time. You know, I thought that we would be doing more together or whatever. And then in addition to me getting really close to him, Grover got really close to him too. I mean, me being close to him because he's my brother. Grover got really close to him too, since we've been in our relationship. So that was like an added layer of both of us grieving and mourning, you know, his loss. And then just like his girlfriend was still at my mom's house, and my mom and her going through it because neither one of them can communicate, and then I'm stuck in between because I'm like, y'all need to talk, and it's just, it was a lot. It was a whole lot.
That sounds like layer on top of layer.
Exactly. But you know, to your point of asking people to map out, you know, experiences that impacted you in some sort of way, you know, and then of course reminding people, like, don't forget the good. Actually, I think I went the wrong way. I said peak when I probably was talking about valleys, but you know, like, what were some of the peaks? You know, like, the peak for me was meeting Grover. It was the most dorky thing in the world because we met on Facebook dating. Went on this date like a week after we met online, and I brought him like 6 plants. And it was like during
like, oh my gosh, that sounds great.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then he brought me like all these little gifts. He brought me this heart stone. I think it was some sort of agate. I still have it, and I wrapped it, and it's on a necklace. I just can't wear any necklaces now because of this guy. But I have so many stone necklaces and crystal necklaces. But yeah, like, that was definitely a peak, you know what I mean, in my life so far. I would say having this guy was a peak. Yeah. Even though, like, labor, that was definitely a peak because I didn't know that I could do that, you know, like, push out a baby, and then, like, 10 seconds later, I'm like, all right, what's next, you know? Like, I felt so at peace and so calm, and I would have never imagined that I would have felt that kind of feeling after having a baby. Good morning, Bree Shocks. Welcome in, love. Another peak, you know, would be like, I don't know. Going to Hawaii with my ex was kind of cool. I've never been to Hawaii before, so that was kind of cool. But, what about you, Aisha?
What, peaks?
Yeah.
Definitely be my boyfriend, like, because we met on Twitch. like COVID time, so it was pretty like nice.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't really do anything at the time, so it was really nice to have like someone there. And then seeing him me, stuff with music has been like a big peak for me.
Absolutely.
But I'd say those are like the main ones recently.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And Sleepy says, peak for me so far has been my art getting better and meeting Lincoln. Absolutely. Absolutely. The internet is a wonderful place, y'all. It really is. It has its peaks and its valleys. Let's be honest. But yeah, when Grover and I met, it was also during like COVID time. Gratefully, we like physically don't live that far from each other, or didn't live that far from each other. So I remember that first day though, we went out on our date and we went to like a Starbucks, just a coffee shop, and then we couldn't like stay in the Starbucks because of COVID. So we were just like walking around this downtown area. There's this empty parking lot. We literally sat on the floor and just talked to each other. And then gratefully there was like, in the area, there's like this, it's not like an outdoor market. It's kind of like, it's like a food hall, but it's like really open. So they have seating and stuff like that, but it's all far away from each other because of COVID. But it was cool because, you could still walk around and nothing was closed in that little market or little food area. So we went and got some food and like sat down and ate. And I remember we were eating noodles. And I just kept thinking, like, how when you eat noodles sometimes, you like slurp it and then the noodle like flaps around? Yeah. And you like get on your face and your shirt. And I just kept thinking, I don't remember, I was wearing a pink shirt, I think. And I just kept thinking, like, oh my God, I'm going to get sauce on my shirt and it's going to be so embarrassing because it's going to be there, like, for the rest of the day. But yeah, we just, like, walked around and hung out and it was really cool. But I think that's a good idea. I think that would be a really good exercise for someone to do.
Yeah.
I'm sort of okay. Like, if someone asked me to do, like, peaks and valleys for the past 5 years, it probably would be tough because my perception of time is not the best. There are certain things I know when they happen because it's based on like starting a new job or you know what I mean, or like how old DJ was at the time. But 5 years ago would be 2018. I can't think of. I mean, I know
you could do it in a year, or you could just instead of every single peak and valley, you could just do the ones that you remember.
That's true. That's true. That's a very good idea. And also to remind people to look through photos in their phone.
Yeah.
I think that's what helps me, like, recollect a lot of things, especially over, like, the past year. I definitely go through my phone sometimes and just start deleting shit. Because I'm like, I don't need 7,000 pictures of DJ. I have so many pictures of DJ. Because ever since he was born, his granny, his dad's mom, has asked for a picture of him, like, every day.
Wow.
Every day. So the only time she doesn't ask me is on the weekends because he's with her. But if he's not with her on the weekend, like if we have something planned, she asks me for a photo. So I have so many pictures of DJ. Because he'll just be like playing and I'll just be like, hey, come here, I'm taking a picture for Granny. And then I'll just take a picture and he'll just be like, like mid-play doing something. And sometimes I'll take it again or whatever. So I have so many pictures of him. So sometimes I'll go through and delete some of them. But yeah, going through photos definitely helps. That's a good idea. But yeah, I like that idea.
I had, going back to, I don't remember who it was now. Going back to, like, peaks in therapy, or just like parts where there's something the therapist said, and you're like,
oh yeah, like aha moments. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, aha moments. There was one with one of the trial sessions I had, where it was an okay session, but there was a point where I was talking about how my mum was very abusive, and I hadn't ever really told anyone, like, with the full knowledge of everything that I knew about her. That he was like the first person that I told, and I remember talking to him about it and like saying how it was so frustrating that no one could see that like your mom can also be a really horrible person.
Yeah.
And I was saying how it was so taboo, and he was like, "Yeah, that's true," and I was like, "What?"
For real? I love that.
It was just like, it was so weird to have like someone agree that like family isn't always there for you 100%, or like just because they're family doesn't mean, well, especially with mothers, I think like if you don't like your mother or for whatever reason you can't be with them or love them as much, it's like very looked down upon by certain people. So I found that really difficult. And then having someone say like that, like acknowledge that, was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. And in that moment, I could totally feel like you're like, wait, what? Did you just did you just agree with me? Like, are you being sarcastic, or is that like a real? You know what I mean? Like you're second guessing it. But it's true. It's absolutely true. You know, especially when it comes to moms. You know. Yeah. And then on the other side too, if mothers don't like or want their children, then it's like, you know, it's people always make it seem as though it is, I don't know, it's a mutual thing, you know. If the relationship between you and your mom isn't the best, it's sometimes it's a combination of both people, other times it's just one person, let's be honest, you know. But the reality is, like, even if you are a mother, even if you are a father, even if you are a sister, brother, partner, whatever, you're still an individual. And as an individual, you can F up and make mistakes. And if you're not holding yourself accountable or looking to make any change, or if you don't even recognize, you know, the struggles that you have and the mistakes that you're making, you know, it's definitely going to trickle down to other people. But it's true. Like, if you tell people, and the funny thing is, if you tell people that you don't have the best relationship with your mom, it's like they immediately go to, well, you've only got one mom.
I know.
And I'm like, cool.
Are you not, like, she, like, and it's like,
I only got one and I don't want her. Especially, I mean, as she is right now, I don't want her. You know, maybe there were times in my life, in our life, in which we had a great relationship. But as it is right now, I don't want her. It doesn't, she's bad for my mental health, let's be honest. And I hear it from my clients a lot. Whether it be their, like, actual maternal mother, or whether it be, like, whoever was the mother figure in their life. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's grandma, sometimes it's an aunt or whatever. But yeah, you get kind of like, people try and rationalize it, or I don't even know what that'd be called. It's like they wanna minimize it, and they wanna, like, really just chalk it down to where you only have one mom, or like it can't be that bad, or, you know, blood is thicker than water, or all the other random crap that people say. When in reality, it's like, but she's a person. And like, if I wouldn't accept or tolerate this kind of disrespect, or, you know, lack of compassion, lack of empathy, lack of just completely ignoring my boundaries from anybody else, why would I accept it from my mom? You know, like, Sleepy says a lot of people were confused as to why, when I met my biological brother, why I did not want to meet my birth mother. But she is such a horrible person. Plus, I have a mom, my adopted mom, and she's amazing. A very open-minded, loving woman. I have no need to meet my birth mother. I feel that. And I feel like we could have a total, like, a complete conversation about that, you know? Like, I remember speaking to, I forgot who I was speaking to, someone who has a troubling relationship with either their mom or whoever was their like mother figure.
Yeah.
And I was sharing with them, you know, something that's really helpful is to connect with someone, if possible, you know, who kind of is your like ideal mother, you know, or to write to your ideal mother, like write to the person who you would want, whoever you imagine your mother to be, like the image of that person. And she might look exactly like your actual mother, but
yeah,
the way she behaves and the way she embraces you, the way she communicates with you is different. You know, write to that person when you're having conversations. Speak to that person. I forgot, I think Sabrina gave that person a name, but it's like your, not your angel mom, but like, sir, I don't know, you can call it whatever, but you know what I mean. I think that would help.
That would be amazing.
Right. I'm like talking about this, I'm like, I should do this too. I should do this too. Yeah, it's tough being a human. Being a human is rough, okay? Being shaped and molded by all these people in our lives and our environments and all this stuff is...
It's hard.
Right, it's hard.
Yeah.
I don't think enough people acknowledge how tough it is to just be a human.
It's like you go through so much and then you have to get yourself out of all of that mess.
Exactly.
For like the rest of your life, and it's like...
Right! Got it.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just do this work forever. And it's just like a bunch of layers. Like, you uncover one part of yourself, you heal from one part of yourself, and then you have a certain experience, and then that triggers something else, and you're like, where did this even come from? You know, and you have to, you got to deal with it at some point, because otherwise it makes your existence kind of miserable, you know. But it's okay. That's the reason why life coaches exist, friends. Hire me. But it's been a really great conversation, Aisha. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences with the stream. Little baby, are you okay? He's like, no. His arms are all stuck down. There you go. You gonna smack me in the face? Is there anything else you'd like to share with everyone, Aisha, before we end the stream?
Yeah. To purchase the merch.
Hey! Aisha's got merch. It's good merch, y'all. It's good merch. I have the black one right here that I let DJ use.
Gotta get it.
Purchase the merches, y'all.
Purchase the merch.
Choose you before life starts lifing. Good morning, sweet little man. I know he is. He's a sweet little baby. But yes, my loves, I appreciate. Oh goodness. Oh my goodness. It's happening. I appreciate everyone in here who contributed to the chat. Everyone who popped in and lurked. Everyone who just stopped by. Oh. Everyone who stopped by, didn't stay, what have you. I hope that you got something that you needed today. I hope you are aware and familiar and believe that this is a safe space. If you ever just need to come exist at this time of day, I'm not going to say in the morning because it's not morning everywhere. Sleepy said you broke his baby emotions. I know, right? I took him out of this carrier and he was like about to thrash. But I just love you all. I hope you have a beautiful Saturday. I might be streaming in a couple hours because I'm going to be playing some Roller Coaster Tycoon, but I got to go do adult stuff. Yay. But yeah, if you'd like to support me in free ways, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Give this video replay a thumbs up like on YouTube. If you'd like to support me in ways that require money, hire me as your life coach. All right? I'm accepting new clients. And here's my link. It'll always be in the description of all of my YouTube videos. Not me spelling it wrong. And then if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Even if you don't use YouTube, just subscribe. Just do it. Come on. Anywho, hope y'all have a beautiful day. Aisha, you don't have to leave. I kind of want to show you that video, DJ. But everyone else have a beautiful day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.